Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the report of the week, and we are now on the air. So, how are we all today? It is Wednesday, March 26th, 2014. Well, we're halfway through the week. Halfway there. Halfway there, guys. Hump day, some call it. Hope you're all doing well today. I don't know how I'm doing. I mean, I'm here. I'm here in one piece. Yeah, that's for sure. But I don't know how I'm doing, I guess I could be doing better. I just got over a cold last week, and last night went to go to bed at 10 p.m. I was sitting there staring at the ceiling. I couldn't fall asleep. I guess insomnia, as you could call it. I was laying there until 3:30. Got a 3-hour sleep. So that's what I'm running off of. But you know what I find interesting? Honestly, you get a 3-hour sleep, right? That's nothing, Some people say, oh, well, you get a 3-hour sleep, you may as well just stay up. But got a 3-hour sleep. Yet, when I woke up, at 6:30, when I woke up, I wasn't even tired. Isn't that odd? Sometimes I'll get a good 8 hours sleep and I'll say, no, I don't want to get out of bed, Or when I start the day, I'm sitting there, can barely keep my eyes open. And that's with an 8-hour sleep. I got a 3-hour sleep last night. I woke up, just like that. I was pretty much full of energy. I wasn't tired in the least. I just woke up, started my day. I haven't even been tired since, so isn't that something? I could only hope come, 10:30 tonight, 11, whatever. I could only hope that I'm tired then, but, right now I'm going strong, and, that's really something. Isn't it funny how that works? You could get a good night's sleep and you're exhausted. You get a terrible sleep like this and you're full of energy. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Well, here we are with our show. Our audio-only lectures. Whatever you wish to call them. They're here. And here they are. Show number 2. So, I uploaded show number 1 on, yesterday, Tuesday. I don't know. I don't know how that went. I could only hope for the best. But you figure, once you start doubting yourself, what good is that? Then you start saying, oh, well, you're a failure, or whatever. And that's not a good attitude to have, You always just gotta carry on, be perseverant, and you gotta figure, out of the however many people have seen it, all the viewers, there has to be at least one person out there who enjoyed some of it. So for that one person, I'm gonna keep doing this. Listen, if there's no one there, I'm wasting your time. Let me know, but gotta be one person. So we'll have to see. So, now begins really the first true episode. Yesterday we talked all about The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead's a fine show, in my opinion. It's gone downhill. I will say that without a doubt. Since season 1, it's definitely gone downhill. But it's a good show at that. But not everyone watches that. You got people tuning in, and they're hearing me talking about zombies and The Walking Dead and all these people that they've never heard of. Who's Rick? Who's Michonne? Who's Carl? Spicy Carl. Who are all these people? And, you figure, well, what's the point? Why should I sit here and waste 45 minutes of my time listening to this guy talking about a show that I don't even watch? I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. So that's why practically, once a week I'm just going to be making episodes. Well, actually, next week's the season finale of The Walking Dead. But, following each episode of The Walking Dead, then I'll do a themed episode towards that show. But after that, it's just going to be episodes like this, where I'll just be talking about completely random topics that a much larger swath of you can relate to. I can hope, at least. So most shows will just follow this structure. This is almost like an introductory episode, per se. It'll pretty much be divided into almost 4 quarters. Each quarter covering a different topic. So it's pretty much like, 4 idle mind lectures in good. 4 idle mind lectures, all put together, combined into one. That's what I was trying to say. I don't know. Maybe the sleep is getting to me, but who knows. But basically, like 4 idle mind lectures put into one. One long show, and that's that. So, topic 1, we're just gonna cover things up here. All right, we're gonna provide closure to a few things. All right. When February 20th came, it was the 3-year anniversary of my videos, my channel. That day in 2011, my channel was born, per se. Founded, established by yours truly. The first Energy Crisis video was published. And, I've been doing the same thing for practically 3 years. So I decided, I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, but I haven't had the guts, to really do this. So I'm doing it now. I've really wanted to start branching out into audio only. These lectures aren't for everyone. I get that. But, for those of you that do enjoy them, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I do appreciate it. But here's where things stand now, alright? Obviously, I haven't been uploading videos that often, alright? I've been uploading them 1 a week. Maybe 1 every 2 weeks. Depends. Probably within the next 3 weeks, I'm going to start getting back to uploading more videos. I'm going to start uploading maybe 2 per week, whatever. Maybe even 3 if I'm feeling feisty. But I'm going to start uploading videos more often. Now, I already am, This week so far, including this, I've uploaded 3 videos. 2 of them being these lectures. 2 out of 3. So what's the point of these lectures? Well, I always liked doing the idle mind lectures. But listen, it's a big process. I gotta sit there. I gotta sit there. I gotta get all my props ready. Anything I want to use is a diorama. Gotta write a script. Gotta get careful planning. Whereas, with this, I'll be talking about pretty much the same topics I would, yet I just need a microphone, and there we go. Now, a lot of people have been worried. I have said, oh, but, report of the week, what are you doing? Are you getting rid of the idle mind? No, I'm not. Listen, I'm not getting rid of the idle mind. This is a new series, okay? May not have a clever, tacky name for it. Might just call it for now, the voice of the report of the week, because that's exactly what it is. It's my voice. VORW, for short. Until we get a tacky title. But, no, listen, this isn't a replacement to the idle mind, alright? Please, I hope to clarify this now. Yeah, the 2 shows are very similar. Very similar. But the idle mind is a video, or I'll be there, sitting in front of a camera, holding items, showing diagrams, dioramas, whatever. I'll be physically there. Whereas here, I'm here in voice. You can't see me. But I'm sitting here. Let it be known that this is not going to replace the idle mind. It's just going to simply run alongside it. I hope you could understand that. I really do. In the future, probably within the next month, I'm going to start uploading idle mind videos regularly. What I might even do, boy, I'm going to be edgy, gonna go out there, gonna cross the line here, alright, get ready. gonna cross the line, and I might just stop doing reviews for like a couple weeks and only do lectures, only do Idle Mind, only do these audio recordings and the Idle Mind videos. If anything, it's gonna be a full-blown resurgence in lectures, both audio and video. So prepare for that. Pepper your Angus, brothers. It's coming. Alright? It is. It is indeed. Prepare yourselves and brace for impact. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. It's gonna be a failure, but how would I know until I try, right? Well, today, I was sitting there at lunch, went out today and bought a bagel. Went out and bought a bagel for lunch. I have for the past week. I've been having a bagel for lunch with butter every day. It's really a good meal, but that got me thinking about bagels. Because I was thinking at the same time, what am I going to talk about today? I said, what am I going to talk about today? What am I going to discuss? And I was holding the bagel, and I looked at it, and I thought, isn't that something? We're going to talk about bagels. And that's what we're going to talk about. So what is a bagel, exactly? For those of you who have never seen a bagel, think of a roll, alright? A circular roll. Now imagine it having a smooth surface, alright? This alleged roll has a hole in the middle, just like a donut. But it's a roll, it's made out of bread. Alright? That's a bagel. Now, there are many types of bagels out there, alright? Bagels completely, they really differ when it comes to topping and composition. Alright? You got all sorts of bagels out there. I don't know. Guys. I don't know how big bagel consumers you guys are. But over here in New York, they call us pretty much the bagel capital of the United States. We're all bagels. That's what we are. That's what we eat here. Bagels. Bagels, bagels, bagels. Bagels. Isn't that a funny word? Just like lobster. That's a funny word also. Lobster. Like a mobster. A lobster. Who knows? We'll talk about that later. But a bagel. I don't know how many bagels you've consumed. Hopefully you've at least seen one in your life. But I don't know. But hopefully you've seen a bagel in your life, and hopefully you know what I'm talking about, and if not, just bear with me here, people, okay? But there are many types of bagels. The most familiar one is plain. Just a plain bagel. Just bread, smooth surface, no toppings, good old-fashioned bagel. Now, people like to put all sorts of stuff on top of the bagel. Or usually the baker does. You got your sesame seeds. That's a very popular topping. You got your poppy seeds. Salt. Garlic. Onion. And everything bagels. Yes, everything bagels. Now, I have an acquaintance of mine up in Canada. And I was telling him about bagels. And he said, now what's an everything bagel? Apparently everything bagels are maybe only a New York thing, I don't know. But, they didn't know what one was. Maybe it's just their knowledge of bagels, I don't know. I'm sure you could find everything bagels up in Canada, but I cannot confirm that. But what is an everything bagel? An everything bagel is a bagel with pretty much a vast variety of toppings on it. You could have sesame seeds, poppy seeds, salt, garlic, all that individually. You put them all together, and that's an everything bagel. Alright? And that's my personal favorite. Every day, I've gone out and gotten an everything bagel. I'll sometimes go to a local deli, or Dunkin' Donuts, or the grocery store. And the bagel that I normally get is an everything bagel. That's my personal favorite. However, You know, if push comes to shove, I'll go also with garlic, poppy seed, salt, or plain. Sesame seed, I'll do what I have to do, but it's not really a favorite of mine. So, that's that. But everything, that's really my personal favorite. So, you have the bagel, and you have the topping. What next? Well, there are various methods of consumption, alright? There are plenty of ways to eat the bagel. Alright? What many people do, how many people eat the bagel, is first, they pull out a knife, or a sharpened object, and assuming the bagel isn't pre-cut, alright? We're going to make assumptions here. Assuming the bagel isn't pre-cut, most people make a horizontal cut, cut it in half, now you have a top half and a bottom half. Then you'll make a vertical cut, dividing those two halves, cutting it straight down the center, and there you go now. You have two halves of the bagel, and those halves divide into quarters, top and bottom. Usually then, an individual will put butter or another substance on said bagel. Then here's where some variation comes in. Some people now, if the butter or other substance applied, some people usually just put the two halves together and eat it as a sandwich, per se. Other individuals will just eat it. They'll eat the bottom first and the top first. Other people will eat it, will rip it into little pieces and eat it like a bird or a little wild animal. You get some people that'll simply make the first horizontal cut and eat it like that. Some people make the first vertical cut and eat it like that. Some people will eat the bagel dry with nothing. Personally, I usually just do it the traditional way. I do the horizontal cut, the vertical cut, apply the butter, and just, eat it that way. But there are many methods of bagel consumption. That's one of the good things about bagels. You never think of it, but there's so much variety when it comes to a little simple bagel. So much variety. So much. Let's keep talking about variety, alright? This is for all of you who like to put a topping of some sort in the bagel, usually a spread of some sort. The most common being butter or cream cheese. Now, I'm a butter type of guy. I always like my butter. I always get a butter. 3 butters, actually, for my bagel. I usually end up applying 2.5. Except for Fridays, and I'll say, well, you know what, it's a Friday, I'll get some, I can spare it. How about some diabetes for the weekend? So I'll go all 3 butters. But normally, I'll just go 2.5 butters for my bagel. Spread them across with a knife. And enjoy. Now, I'm really not going to explain what butter or cream cheese are, because then I'm really just getting rid of an opportunity for a future lecture, if I start getting desperate. Maybe if I start talking about the movie theater or something, that's when butter would come in handy also. So we're not going to explain the two. However, butter, it's pretty much like a little buttery taste. Very common flavor. Could occasionally be salty, depending. But it pretty much has its own flavor. Then you got cream cheese, which I'm not very fond of, so I would offer a biased opinion, but it's definitely thicker, a different color, different flavor. I'm not very fond of cream cheese. The other day I got a bagel, last Sunday, had cream cheese all over it, and I said butter. I was disgusted. I said to myself, look, I said, I took it to go, didn't look at it, and I said, listen, this is what you get. This is what you get when you don't look at the bagel. You get stuck with this. But what can you do? I ate it anyway. I figure I'm not going to throw out food. I paid for it, and I'm not going to throw out food. That's wasting money. In today's day, you really can't spare anything more than what you have to use. So with that being said, I wasn't going to throw that out. So I fixed it up and ate it. But that's where the two toppings really differ. But also, some people on a bagel like to put jelly or jam on said bagel. Now, is there a difference between those two? Pretty much the same substance, but under two names, jelly and or jam. Is there a difference between that and butter? Yeah, there sure is. Jelly, usually is flavored. Alright, it's an amorphous substance. Still spread with a knife, but it's more of a gelatinous texture. Not quite complete gelatinous, but definitely has that texture. Usually comes in the flavor of a fruit, usually. You could have apple, whatever. And I'll usually give your bagel a distinct flavor. Butter is butter. Two opposite things. There's been heavy debate over these two. You got millions of people saying, no, they're the same thing, but they're not. They really aren't. Jelly and jam are completely different than butter. Keep that in mind, alright? Now, when I go up for lunch, as I said, I always go and get a bagel. That's my meal. What are bagels really? Are they a meal or a snack? Or both? Could they be both? Could bagels fall in the rare category where they can be considered both a meal and a snack? They could. I think so. Look at it this way. It's in between meals. I'm hungry, but I don't want to spoil my appetite. You could go for a bagel. You could go for a bagel and you could get that, and there you have it. So I think that could be a snack. But then again, establishments such as Dunkin' Donuts will sell bagels where they're almost like a sandwich, where they'll have some sort of, maybe, some places will have, egg or whatever, bacon or whatever on the bagel or sandwiched in between, and then you're talking breakfast. Breakfast is a meal. It's the most important meal of the day, according to some. So I think bagels fall in the category where they could be considered, depending on the individual and depending on the consumption, they could be a meal or a snack. Bagels. Isn't that something? Who knew I'd be talking for 23 minutes about bagels, right? Who knew? Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to VORW. I hope you're enjoying the show thus far. We're about halfway through. Listen, if you have internet access, please feel free to check us out at www.youtube.com/reportoftheweek. That's www.youtube.com/THEREPORTOFTHEWEEK. The Report of the Week. Feel free to check out our channel there on YouTube. Explore the channel. We have hundreds of videos up, dating through the years. Various reviews, lectures, whatever interests you, feel free to check them out. While you're exploring the site, feel free to check out our inbox system, and please, send me a message. If you've made it this far in the show, you've listened to what I have to say thus far, please send me a message on YouTube. I really do request, it's very important that you send me a message. I'll get back to every last one of them. I certainly will. I might even read a few if they're particularly exciting. Unless you specify otherwise, I'll read them on the air. But please, share your thoughts. If you like the show, let me know. If you don't like it, let me know. I will take constructive criticism, and I might even make changes. If you have any suggestions for future show topics, please let me know. I'll gladly take any suggestions. I will gladly look into anything. Thank you very much, and I hope you're enjoying the show thus far. This is the Report of the Week. So as I was making this list here, with all the topics, I was brainstorming this afternoon. And, I was writing this down on a piece of paper. Got them all bulleted down. And that's when I looked at the pen I was writing with. Bic. Bic pens. Bic, I think they're a lighter company. Pretty sure they are. But Bic. I've used their pens before, and I've had some complaints. Don't you think, about 5 minutes after that, the pen started running out of ink? And that's what brought me into this next topic. We're going to talk all about cheap pens for the next little while. So, I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat right now, for the two of you that are still here. I'm sure you're on the edge of your seat, because now we're going to talk all about cheap pens. So, writing implements. Still essential today in the internet age. You still need them. Pens. Variety. A massive variety. Got all sorts of colors of pens. To a limited degree, shape, size, and quality. Listen, there's some great quality pens out there. You got some vintage fountain pens out there that have been in use for 50, plus years. And that's something. And then you got pens that'll only be in use for about 50 minutes. And those are the pens we're going to be talking about. Now, there's 3 brands of really poor quality pens that I'll talk about here. Alright? If you're ever in a dollar store, or a stationery store, whatever, keep that in mind when you're going to go buy cheap pens, a bag of like 20. If you see these brands, think, well, your good old boy, Report of the Week, talk about them, so be aware. So you could think of it that way. But 3 brands of pens that have always let me down were Bic, Papermate, and Basique Americana. Yeah, I'm sure you've definitely heard of that last one. Found that at the dollar store. So you could tell that that's going to be promising. Now, how do you spot a bad pen? You could literally spot a complete crap quality pen just by looking at it. Here's how. It's just literally one of those almost see-through plastic pens, cheap, and usually in about a bag of 20. Those are not quality. And you could pretty much get the bag of 20 for like 99 cents, maybe $2.50, $3.50. So, if you see that, know that you're not necessarily going to get your money's worth. One good pen for maybe $5 would last better than 20 of those cheap pens. Alright? Now, I'm talking about cheap pens. I'm talking about, oh yeah, they're bad pens. Alright, well, what's so bad about them? What's so bad about them? Here's some issues. Number 1. They run out of ink. Exact same thing that just happened when I was bulleting my list here of what I was going to talk about on today's show. Ran out of ink. Just died right then and there. And would you believe I only started using that pen this morning? It's only been in use for probably about maybe an hour and a half. 2 hours. And it died on me. Short-lived. Number 2. Some of them just never work. I remember there was this package of blue pens I bought from Papermate. Literally, one out of every 2 pens didn't even work. I would try to write with them, and nothing would ever even show up. They wouldn't work. They were just dead from the start. Number 4. They explode. This is my worst nightmare. You know, I sometimes carry pens in my shirt pocket, or occasionally my pants pocket. The last thing I ever want to see is this big ink stain on a white shirt. That is my worst nightmare. I mean, that scares me. Let me tell you a short story. This happened about 3 weeks ago. I was using, I think, a Bic pen. Perfectly new pen. I didn't do anything to it. I just used it for the day, and then I put it away. I left it in a coat pocket of my pea coat. So I wake up the next morning. It was chilly. I was going to go out. So I get dressed, put on the usual shirt and tie and something else. Put on the pea coat. Put my hand in the pocket, because it was chilly outside. I feel this liquid on the tips of my fingers. I think, what is that? I think I didn't leave anything else in there. What is that? Is that water? Pull my hand out. There's ink all over my fingers. On the nails, front and back, everywhere. Probably going down to the knuckles. It was awful. I thought to myself, oh, expletive. There we go. What a great way to start off the day, right? Had to go back in, remove the pen. It just completely, practically went inside out. All the ink that was in there, so just decided to go out during the night. I don't do anything to my pens. The ink just spewed out. And there was that. So I threw the pen out. Couldn't touch anything else with that hand, my right hand. So I thought, well, what's water going to do? And here's a helpful tip. Here's a life hack. Stupid life hacks. They're all idiotic. But here's a true life hack. Alright? You ever get ink on your hand, right? Water it'll get it off eventually, but you're going to have to vigorously scrub and wash it off. If you ever want to get ink off your hand fast, get a few tissues, and pretty much soak it in rubbing alcohol, and just wipe down your fingers, your extremities, whatever's covered in the ink. Wipe it off with the tissue or paper, whatever, soaked with alcohol, with rubbing alcohol. That'll get it right off. And I knew that. So that really saved me a lot of work, but that got the ink off my hands, very fast and swiftly and effectively. So my hand is clear, finally. After a good 5-10 minutes of, trying to do that and cursing my coat, all that, or the pen. And finally, now, what next? Well, we've got ink sitting there in the coat pocket. So I had to get that inside out, and we were able to wash it off. And now it's, of course, back to normal. It's a tough coat. I commend it for that. But, that's what can happen. It was a cheap pen. It let me down. Let me down. It just exploded on me, and it let me down. It disappointed me. And, it's not the first time it's happened. That's the first time it ever happened in an article of clothing of mine, but they've happened before. Just while I've been writing, all of a sudden the ink starts coming out, and I throw it out and grab another one. So, you have to beware of that. Now, if anything, if I'm going to wear a pen in my shirt, it's going to be a nicer pen. It's going to be a quality pen, not one of those. Because the last thing I want to do, don't want to look in and see all the black ink in the white dress shirt. Terrible. Terrible. Saddens me to even think of that. And one other, real con, of this, of cheap pens is the little cap. The little cap and the little clip. With pens you could easily just put the cap and you could just put it in the shirt pocket. Well, cheap pens, usually the caps frequently break. What good are they then? So that's an issue there. Nothing more needs to be said. The cap just frequently breaks. That's about that. Now, are there any pros to cheap pens? Yeah, of course. There has to be at least a few pros. And there are. Number one, they're cheap. They're inexpensive. You could buy I think a bag of 20 Bazik Americana pens for 99 cents at the dollar store. So you're getting crap, but you're getting a lot of it. That's always nice. And they work sometimes. Maybe one in every bag will last you for a week. That's good. So, you get one that decides to hold in there and actually do its job. That's always nice. Those are the two pros. I think the cons outweigh the pros, but I suppose you could argue the other way around. But you know what I noticed? Hotel pens. You ever go to a hotel or a motel or whatever, they usually have the desk there, for computers, or if you're just going to write something or whatever. And sometimes they'll have a complimentary pen there. Those pens are superb. They're superior to any of those pens. They're superior. And you get them for free. Or you could think of it, you get them for $500 for a hotel room. A nice one. But they're reliable pens, and they last forever. Not a single hotel pen has let me down. I've been using this one pen from this, I think, Marriott. I've had it since 2012, and it still has yet to run out of ink. It hasn't done anything. So they're good pens. They certainly are. They're reliable, and they last for a long time. Well, what do we talk about today? Pens, bagels, and videos. Wow. What an exciting show. Seriously, I'm shaking with excitement right now. This is amazing. Wow. Well, here we are. So, what did we learn today? Bagels have a lot of variety to them. And don't get cheap pens. That's about it. Well, thank you all for listening. This is the Report of the Week here. Episode 2, show number 2. Talked all about bagels and pens. Videos. A good reiteration of what I said in the previous show. Well, I suppose that's all I have to say for now. I think I'll see you tomorrow. I think I'm going to make another show, tomorrow afternoon. I hope to see you then. Thank you all for listening. This is the Report of the Week. Take care.